Hey, good day. This is Jim Blythe for the National Defense Briefing Series, and I'm here with my good friend and sometimes co-host Mark Liebman to talk about an upcoming event that you want to be a part of. Mark, tell us about it and introduce our friend.
Hi, my name is Mark Liebman. I'm a retired Navy captain, naval aviator, and I'm also a member of the board of the National Defense Briefing Series. And it's my pleasure to introduce Rear Admiral Mike Manazir. And he used to be the N9, which is the DCNO for warfighting in the United States Navy. And we have some questions that we're going to ask the Admiral, and he's going to give us not all the answers, but some of the answers. And if you want to hear him talk to the group, come to the event on October 26th, 2025 at Heritage Ranch. We still have seats available. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Blythe to ask the questions.
One of the things that I think everybody who's been in the Navy or part of the service would like to know about what you think about how the Navy's role has changed since 1900. Go back, because a lot of what we saw in Vietnam, we were still using World War II tactics. So please tell us what you're going to be talking about with that topic.
Well, Jim, thanks. And I'm so excited to be here. You guys both know, and the audience will know, I have to do this virtually because I'm in the middle of a couple of big things and can't get down to Dallas in person. But I so look forward to talking to everybody about this topic. As Mark said, I was the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for and readiness, warfighting capability from basically 2013 for naval aviation, then all of the Navy from 2016 to 2017. And we thought about the role of the Navy all the time. But let me tell you something. Sir Walter Raleigh, way back in the 1700s, said, whoever controls the sea controls the trade, and whoever controls the trade controls the world. The United States Navy exists to ensure sea control is free for international trade. And so it's going to be really fun to talk about what the role of the Navy is and how we defend. And so everybody out there knows that the U.S. Navy has been in a shooting war out in the Red Sea, and being able to keep the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb, which is the strait there between the bottom of Yemen and Djibouti is on the other side. Yep, and then keeping that open for trade. And so I think, Jim, what we're going to talk about is the role of the Navy in today's international trade world.
That is going to be amazing. Another thing that I think everybody is going to be very interested in is in the carrier, which is, I think, the backbone of our Navy today. What's the survivability of a carrier in today's world, given the drones, given the technology, and the things that could happen?
Yeah, so I commanded USS Nimitz from 2007 to 2009, and then I was the Carrier Strike Group commander for the Dwight D. Eisenhower Strike Group in 2012 and 2013. The carrier has been facing threats from many different domains: submarine torpedoes, surface-to-surface missiles from long range. Think China's DF-21 and DF-26. Back in the 80s, we were running around on carriers, and when I was commanding in the 2000s and then in the 2012, 2013, there are all kinds of threats to the carrier. If you just sat that big 4.5 acres of flight deck right in one place, pretty easy to hit. The problem for the bad guys is we move, and the carrier can move 700 miles in 24 hours, and so it's a mobile asset. And so the secret to survivability is to not just sit someplace. And so we'll talk about, how do you keep the carrier survivable as well as the ships that are all around it? And people often say, well, that's, the Chinese or the Russians or whoever just going to shoot that thing out of the water. No, it's not as easy as people might think.
Can I say something here for a quick?
Please do.
So, Admiral, back in the day, and my career ended officially in 1993, we ran many exercises in the Western Pacific. And it was always entertaining to watch the Soviets try to find us.
Mm-hmm.
And the Soviets invested billions, and I mean billions of rubles or dollars, whichever word you want to use, in overhead assets, radar, photographic, electronic. And routinely, we could do things acoustically, electronically, and for with movement to hide. And also, there's exceptions you can do to hide the carrier and where we were. And on several occasions, we would show up places where the Soviets were totally surprised, and they had no idea we were there until we turned something on electronically.
No, it's amazing what all is there today, but sometimes it's amazing how something so small as a drone can do so much damage.
Yeah,
One,
Mark and Jim, you got a great point, but you got to find that carrier. And Mark, you'll be happy to know that I don't know, back about 10 or 12 years ago, we surprised the Chinese. I was part of that. It's classified how we did that, but we actually also surprised the Chinese through some tactics, get to a certain place and go, hi, here we are. And we took them completely off guard. So there are still ways to do what you're talking about that we did back with the Russians as the primary adversary.
that's going to be a fascinating conversation, and I'm going to be there. We're going to have a table. I was in naval aviation. Obviously, both of you guys were as well. One of the things is I keep hearing from many people that our generations of our fighters and our equipment today is becoming more and more and more dated and older and older. Why is the next generation so critical to our carrier strike force today?
Yeah, that'll be fun to talk about. When people think about individual airplanes, they often compare them one to one. And in fact, sometimes the only way to do it is to compare one to one. The performance aspects of the airplane itself, the missiles that they carry, the radar system they carry, how far out they can shoot, all those kind of things. But the real power of the carrier air wing, and we're going to talk about, the carrier strike group. The real power of the carrier air wing is the combination of the assets. And so it'll be fun to talk about how the next generation airplane is going to fit into the flight deck and be able to connect with all the other airplanes and bring like this synergistic capability. There's something I learned a long time ago, Jim, that I think is very important. As the airplanes we fly get older, it doesn't mean that the weapon systems are not up to date. And so every airplane we have in the Navy, every airplane in the Air Force and in the Army is continually upgraded using engineering change proposals or ECPs. And so there'll be a new piece of kit that'll make either the missile go farther or it'll make the airplane more survivable or something like that. So we continue to upgrade the airplanes. Oftentimes people go, oh, wait a minute. The F-18 was launched in 2004. It can't still be relevant. It's going to be relevant. And all the airplanes in the carrier air wing are going to be relevant. Keeping the air wing relevant, I'll give you one more stat, which is really cool. The USS Enterprise went into Newport News Shipyard a few years ago. And the first time it went to sea was in 1961. And the first time a surface ship was underway a nuclear power USS Enterprise. The USS Enterprise and its strike group lasted for more than 20 years. And she was relevant the entire time because of the capability enhancements that kept coming on top of the flight deck. And so that's what we do. And so bringing this new generation fighter, and I'll talk about the characteristics that are most valuable for us when we talk about this thing on the 26th, is how that, what we call an FAXX, is going to add to the capability of the Navy Air Wing.
I think one of the biggest challenges that the Navy may be facing is training and upgrade in personnel. Now, what are some of the challenges that the Navy's dealing with and threats that you see?
Well, so let me address the training for a second. The United States Navy, and in fact, the United States Department of Defense, is the most powerful armed force the world has ever seen. I am shocked at the level of capability that our sailors today have. I am so impressed with the kind of knowledge they have, the ability to think strategically, and the type of training they get in these complex weapon systems. And so when we go into a fight, and that fight may start in space and in cyber, which I would offer to your listeners and to the attendees, that we're already at war in cyber and in space with the Chinese and the Russians, the Iranians, the North Koreans, and so when we go into where, people think of actual war, the shooting war, the second problem coming to bear with this well-trained force is things are coming from everywhere. And before you had like a surface fight and maybe there's an air fight. Now it's all going to be integrated. So the big problem operationally is being able to deal with a multitude of threats that are from space and cyber and air and surface and submarines all at one time. And smart people will go, oh, wait a minute, you always had those domains. Well, what's different now is we're able to connect them. And so information that is gained by a submarine in the water can be shared with an airplane, can be shared across space to a surface ship. And so now that whole thing is connected, and it's a concept called a kill web or a kill mesh. And so shooting information around is going to be the coin of the realm. Now, the adversary has to keep that information moving. We want to stop their information from moving, but we want to assure that our information can move. So it's going to be an information war. Last one, and this is the third. So you talked about training. We talked about the fight itself. Last one is the operational readiness of our forces. So getting the ships out of dry dock and out of heavy maintenance and at sea, keeping the maintenance going so that all of our airplanes, our ships, our submarines are ready to go if we're going to go fight tonight. So that readiness is going to be really tough as well. And that can get expensive after a while if you're trying to do that stuff. So I think those big challenges are the ones we'll talk about.
I think that's going to be fascinating to be there and to hear what you have to say and the other people's questions. And I think one of the big questions, because you're talking about a giant competition, which is between PRC and Russia and the United States with other players, what advantage do you think our Navy today, of all of this level that we're talking about, has over those other two militaries?
I sort of leaned into it a little bit before, Jim. We are more well trained. We train at that highest level of the potential war fight. We train at the level with everything integrated. We train by taking away, things that you might need to do the war fight, like interconnecting networks and things like that. We train at the highest end. Nobody else trains like we do. The secret sauce is the American sailor, soldier, Marine, airman, guardian. Nobody else has that. I know for a fact that the Chinese and the Russians always looked at our small unit leaders, think Marine PFCs and sergeants, those kind of people who can lead. Chiefs, the Chinese and the Russians, they don't have chiefs, E8s, E7s, 8s, and 9s. They don't have chief petty officers in the Navy or E7, 8, 9 from the other services. That middle level of essentially management in our military, those are the secret to keeping our forces ready to go. That's what they don't have. And I dare say that knowing what I know about our forces and how we employ them, it's really hard. I mean, it's really hard. And so, for instance, the Chinese operating their aircraft carrier, we've been operating aircraft carriers for over 100 years. There's no way, there's a piece of that you just have to go do. You guys both know this, from former deployments and stuff. It's hard. I mean, sure, you can put a piece of machinery out there and you can go, okay, this is how you do this. You take off the airplanes, all that kind of stuff. But actually making it happen in the ballet that goes into that, it's really, really, really tough. So the combination of our sailor training plus our long history of warfare at sea and operations at sea, that's what's going to give us the advantage.
Admiral,
Without
can
a
I
doubt.
add one more thing? Jim, hang on a second. I think also one of the, I use the word, a business term, competitive advantages or differentiators, is the fact that we push decision making down to the lowest possible level and give our JOs and our chiefs and our petty officers and E4s, E5s, and the other services a tremendous amount of responsibility and the ability to make decisions on the fly because they understand. I hate to use the word, it's trite, the big picture. But I've watched, I mean, just think about this. In Afghanistan, we had E4s with 8 or 9 guys manning a checkpoint and having to make decisions about are the people approaching them carrying bombs or are they innocent? And he has no place to go. He just can't pick up the phone, call home and say, hey, help. Can't. He's got to make the decision on the spot, right or wrong. And the fact that we push that down is something that particularly the Russians and the Chinese don't do. And then the last thing we don't have to deal with, particularly with the Chinese, is the concept of face. And that's a very difficult cultural issue that the Chinese have to deal with.
Well, guys, this is really great. I'm going to leave the last question to be done at the Defense Briefing Series, and that's going to be about the future of the Navy and how things are going to be affected. Because I know, for instance, here in Texas, we've got the Army Futures Command. I know the military is looking out, way out into the future. And I think that is going to be the culmination of a great talk that you're going to have, Admiral, that's going to really kind of bring us all around. I look forward to being there, and I look forward to seeing it recorded. So, guys, I want to thank you so much, Mark and Admiral Manazir. What a great deal. What a great deal. And I got to tell you, I look forward to being there. So, again, you can go to National Defense Briefing Series.com or .org, Mark.
It's ndbsinc.org.
.org,
And you
okay.
can
And
click on
get
feature.
yourself a ticket. The other thing is, I think we're going to be recording this so that people can see it and can really get a chance to know the Admiral and all of the things that he stands for, one of which is leadership. And you are one of the top leadership training admirals in the nation. So I want to thank you for that and for your book about leadership. Guys, is there anything else in closing you want to say?
My Navy.
Yeah, go Navy. I'm excited for the session, Jim. Thanks very much for the time today. I'll see
You
everybody
bet.
soon.
And I'll see you October 26th. Have a great day.